My granddaughter would.
Hello, welcome. We will now call the meeting of the Fayette County School Corporation Board of School Trustees Business Meeting to order. We are here at the Administration Building. It's Tuesday, July 16th, 2019, 6:30 p.m. And let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to start out tonight to get a little update about the solar project and our other summer projects. Brian.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks for giving me a couple minutes just to go over some things that we've done as far as energy-saving projects at the middle school and obviously the solar field, and then just some of the summer projects that we've got going right now. So if I can figure out how to run this, baby. Cindy, is that the right?
Up in the corner, the left corner.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, last summer, we did an energy savings project at the Connersville Middle School where we replaced all of the boilers and the chillers. We worked through our company, Performance Service, who are our guaranteed energy savings contractor. Some of the electrical savings that we've seen, and again, if you notice here, we're going from October of 2018 to present. So we have approximately $12,800 in savings just in electric. There's some additional savings expected in July and August and September because we're going to be running those chillers a lot more than we are right now. So we'll see some more savings there. And you can see that we've had a 6% reduction in our electric usage. The big savings that we've seen so far is from our gas consumption. So we've saved $23,773 off of our gas bill. And that's just through one heating season. So those boilers have ran just the one heating season, and we saved that much in gas. Just as a something to think about, so with the old boilers, you could walk into the boiler room, and there would be 3 boilers running at about 70%. So 70% of their capacity. I went in this past winter on a day where it was 0, and there was 1 boiler running at 5%. So they're so much more efficient, and they use so much less gas. It's just the technology in them continue to grow. So we're seeing a large savings in our gas consumption. Here's some of the emissions savings as well. So basically the equivalent of 35 homes of energy use. We're saving that so far. Greenhouse emissions, so 63 passenger vehicles driven for a year. Here's some CO2 emissions. So if you look, 37 million smartphones what could have been charged. Yeah. And the equivalent of carbon sequestered by 346 acres of forest in 1 year. So total savings for the year is just under $37,000. And our anticipated savings when we started the project was $21,000. So we've exceeded that by quite a bit. So the solar project, our original target was to get the solar field up and going on February the 14th. We were a little bit late. If you remember, we had an extremely wet winter, so that kind of hampered the guys getting the panels and all the stations put in. So we energized it on March 9th, this year. So far, we're at 77% of our predicted production, and that was through March through June. For July, we're at 92% of what the predicted production would be. Some of that is due to the weather impact. So when we were looking at this project, they base their assumptions on a 64-year average of the weather. So if you look, the percentage of clear days relative to the average year was 35%, and percentage of cloudy days relative to the average year is 117. So it's kind of a little off right now, but it'll balance itself out. So
What is meant by predicted production? Can you put that in a term that?
Layman's terms.
Yeah, so they predicted, based on where the field was going to set, how it was oriented into the sun, based off this 64-year average of the weather, that we would produce approximately 70 to 80% of our own power.
Of our own needs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and if you'll see in the next slide, I've got a chart that kind of explains that just a little bit more.
Okay.
So this is our website. So Solar Edge is who helps monitor the solar power for us. If you see down on the bottom on the chart, everything that's green, that's solar energy that we're producing. Everything that's red is our consumption. So you can see at the peak time, so you're looking at probably, I'm going to guess this is around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We're producing well over what we're consuming. So it's kind of we're producing a lot more right now than what we need. But in the wintertime, as the days get shorter, the sun's not as strong, you'll see our production go down and our consumption go up, again, because we're running boilers and we're running those different things. So that's where they talk about the 70 to 80%. So we're well on track to be at that target. Something interesting that I thought, so some of our environmental benefits, so just since March 9th when we fired up the solar field, we've saved enough energy that basically we've planted 12,400 trees. So that's kind of as a comparison. So pretty neat project. This is the first solar project I've ever been a part of. Again, this was through Performance Services, and they've been great to work with. Still got some things to do to finish up the solar field. We've got to plant the grass out there. It only grows about 8 inches a year. So again, we've been fighting with the weather on that as well. So we're not quite done yet, but we're getting there. Now, moving on to some of our summer projects, I condensed this list down. I'm going to look on my paper because I can't really see that screen. So this is just kind of a Gantt chart I put together that shows some of the bigger projects that we've got going on and where we're at. If you'll notice over on the right-hand side, the completion date. So if I've got a date in there, then that project is already completed. If it's green, then the project is on track to be completed when we want it to be done. And if it's yellow, it's not necessarily behind schedule, but it's something that I'm going to make sure that we keep pushing to get it done. So the only one that we have yellow is over at the Career Center. We're changing all the electrical panels there. That's a massive job, and it has to be done before teachers get here, so that's why I got it yellow, so it's on my radar to make sure that it gets done. So just a couple of these I'll run over. So the softball and the soccer concrete, that's complete. I've got some pictures of that just to kind of show you what we've been doing. Arena floor refinishing, auditorium balcony at CMS, boiler replacement at the Career Center, casework at Everton. So a lot of good projects that are going to benefit our staff and our students this summer. Obviously, we have the Spartan Activity Center going on, so I just put some pictures here. So you can see we started with, just started moving some dirt, started pouring footers. Here's our foundations that are in. This bottom picture is when we were setting our first bent of steel, and now you can see that, we're making good progress. So again, got kind of behind the 8 ball there with Mother Nature this winter and spring, but we're making up some ground now. And just some of our other projects. So you can see the softball, the soccer complex. So we're concreted all the way down, all the way around there. This is the new casework at Everton. It's going to go into Eastview as well. The old casework, it was just dated. It needed redone. This is more, I think it's more individualized for the student. So they each have their own little cubby, a place to put their lunch pail. So it's kind of, I think it'll be good for them. So. And then this is had to put a new expansion tank in at the swimming pool. It was a large project, but it's complete now. The swimming team is back in there swimming. So again, a lot of good projects, a lot of projects in-house that we're working on as well. So does anyone have any questions?
The purpose of the expansion tank?
So a pool with concrete sides, it's obviously there's a ton of pressure on each side. So if all of us ran up there and we jumped in the pool and there wasn't an expansion tank, there's a good chance that those walls would crack. So that expansion tank absorbs the weight of people jumping in the pool. So if a bunch of people jumped in and you watched the expansion tank, you could see the water go, and it's just basically a big shock absorber is what it is. Yep.
Looks good, Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the photographs. I mean, I appreciate you presenting. Lots of times, my recollection is Janie presents the progress in a lot of our summer work. I'm a visual person. I like pictures.
Yeah.
So I like that. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, now I would like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended.
Madam President.
Thank you, Chris. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Andy. Beat you to it. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, now is time for any patron comments on agenda items. Seeing none from our patrons, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes approval of the minutes from the regular business meeting of 6/11/19, the personnel report including retirements, resignations, leaves of absences, etc., the approval of the June 2019 claims 53574 to 53881, and our donations. A donation of $500 from Dribble Over Drugs to be used during Red Ribbon Week, a donation of $927.77 from the Louise Joyner Trust Fund for the new life skills classroom. Okay, so seeing the consent agenda, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now move on to the singular action item for tonight, the personnel report. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. President, Board. We did get a revised copy of this to you as we're still onboarding folks, and we actually have a couple more teachers we're working on now, but we did not get everything done, so we want to be sure we do our due diligence. So we do have a few other teachers in the works. Recommendations for employment, and these are a couple of internal changes. Shane Russell, you accepted his resignation as the assistant athletic director, and one of the changes we're wanting to make is combining our middle school, high school athletics under one program. So Trent Liggett is going to be moving into that assistant athletic director position. He's also going to be taking on some other roles for the district with the safety coordinator. We have so many different safety initiatives and state mandates. We need one person who's really the overseer of that, the point person to be trained so he can provide that to us. And then he's also going to be working with us on attendance at the district level. Yet he'll also be supporting middle school. We're working on this as a transition year with that. So I'm excited about the collaboration that we're going to have between our middle school and high school. I think this will be a very positive move. So those are two changes. The other was Shane Russell. He is going to focus on our freshmen. Really work with our 8th graders, our transition students to the high school. And then he's going to serve a dual role where he'll work with support and providing guidance and different opportunities there to build those relationships with kids, and also deal with other issues that may happen with attendance issues with freshmen, disciplinary issues, but really focusing on helping those students become acclimated to the school. That's a tough year we have found for kids, and it's a crucial year for success for the remainder of their career. So those are two changes we're making administratively. For certified staff, Delana Birch, elementary teacher at Maplewood, Garrett Crow, elementary teacher at Grandview, Lexi Fultz, elementary teacher Frazee, Macy Guard, integrated chemistry and physics teacher, CHS, Emily Grizel, art teacher at Everton and Frazee, Miranda Persaponco, elementary teacher at Grandview, Lisa Rose, elementary teacher at Grandview, Samantha Straight, elementary teacher Fayette Central, Kendra Templeton, elementary teacher Eastview, and Lindsay Wood, Head Start teacher at Maplewood. Classified staff, Aaron Lloyd, nutrition bus assistant at Maplewood, John Robbins, halftime custodian at Fayette Central, Lena Smith, educational assistant at the Career Center, Tommy Williams, a school community liaison at Maplewood, and Jason Worth, custodian at Eastview and Maplewood. Additionally, on attachment A, you have the list of staff for our Jump Start program for 2019, and we have at Eastview Julie Myers and Jen Diock. At Everton, Emily Knox, Sarah Foster. Fayette Central, Chelsea Lucas, Nikki Castile. Frazee, Angela Shute. Grandview, Jessica Miller, Nicole Branson. Maplewood, Jenny Smith, and Megan Olson. And then we have our nursing assistants at each school who will be working. And that's Sheila Gross at Eastview, Bev Sterling, Everton, Sue Mitchell, Fayette Central, Pam Isaacs, Frazee, Shelley Perry, Grandview, and Sheila Hood, Maplewood. And then we also have Jumpstart assistants, and those are really dependent upon numbers, but these are the staff members who are interested and they've been selected based on numbers, and that's Eastview, Sammy Taylor, Everton, Lisa Brown, Fayette Central, Connie McKinney, Frazee, Jennifer Hendrickson, and Lexi Fultz, Grandview, Devin Mullins, and Maplewood, Mitch Rose. Finally, we do have on item 3 on the personnel report, we did not have the correct information from Levi with the hours needed for summer band, and that's an increase of 15 hours for the summer band program, and we're asking approval of that. And then also our elementary, we needed to make that 4.5 hours, not 4, so we just want your approval that that additional half hour was needed for student supervision and some preparation time. So that's the information for our personnel report for the month of July.
So at Frazee, with only one Jumpstart teacher compared to the other schools, is that why you have 2 possible assistants for Frazee as well?
Yes, Lexi Fultz is actually hired to be the new kindergarten teacher, but she won't be on contract, so she
Okay.
is serving as an educational assistant, so she'll be there to meet the kids and get.
Yeah, so we'll have enough.
We'll
Kind of
have staff there,
offsets and
yeah.
stuff, yeah.
And the only other thing, so I've probably been in this position before and I wasn't aware, the school community liaison?
Not exactly.
Can you explain?
Yeah, Kim, do you want to share a little bit of that?
Yes, we have, with Title I funds, we're kind of changing how we are utilizing those Title I funds. In the past, we've used them as Title I assistants, and each school had Title I assistants, and they did small group instruction. A lot of times it was in reading and math. With our higher poverty schools, we're trying to be a little more creative because they get a larger portion of money because of their higher socioeconomics. So we are working with those 2 administrators to kind of utilize that money in different ways. And one way that we felt like may be more beneficial for those buildings with their higher needs is to hire someone as a school community liaison. And that person is going to still be part of the Title I staff, but their focus will be more on helping kids and parents with attendance. If the kids aren't there, they'll be, making that initial contact with parents, helping parents with their needs as to why they aren't at school. Some of our behavior kids, reaching out to parents, being an additional support for those parents. Our kids are need so many more wraparound services, and so we felt like it might be a better use of our federal funds to provide our parents and kids with a different type of support. So we have changed it, and this is new for Grandview and Maplewood this year, and we're looking forward to seeing if that additional support in the area of attendance and behavior will in turn impact student achievement as well, because they just need a little extra support, and this person's going to be devoted just to providing them with not only academic support but behavioral and emotional support as well.
So do you already have somebody for Grandview? Because
We do.
Oh, okay.
It was on last
Okay, I must have missed that.
month's board meeting.
Okay.
So both of those are going to kind of pilot that, and then if we
Cool.
see some success and increased attendance and behavior, then we're going to maybe roll that into our other Title I schools. But right now, they're our highest need schools.
And there will still be other supports at those schools as
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
But this is just a way to try to build that homeschool connection. Tommy's had a lot of experience working with the youth in this community, and he's pretty excited about it.
He is very excited.
So it's a pilot, but I think I'm very encouraged. I appreciate Kim and her team for thinking outside the box to try to find ways to connect our families and kids.
Well, I think in Tommy's case, it's so important that you have male.
Sure.
The male role model, and he knows how to deal with
He does.
interesting children.
Yeah, we're excited, and we're hoping that our parents will take advantage of the additional support.
Yeah, and he'd be great with that.
Did they have to take some special training?
We'll do in-house things with them to support them.
Okay, great. So, looking at the personnel report, do I hear a motion to approve?
I so moved.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And on to the discussion item, 2019 Fayette County School Corporation updates. Mr. Collins.
Thank you. I'm going to stand for this. I've been sitting all day, so.
Glad to have you stand.
Cindy, are we up here? Is it at the bottom? All right. Okay, this is about a 45-minute presentation. I'm going to do in 15. Okay.
Thank you.
Speed
Somebody
bump.
said-
I heard a moan from the audience back here, so. I did this last year around the same time, and you know, traditionally this had been done mid-year in January, but I sort of like to wrap up the year and look at some data. We don't have iLearn data yet, but I don't know if we'll even get that in 2019. We don't have our school grades yet. We may not get that in 2019. So wanted to show enrollment, and I don't want this to be misleading. This includes our preschool enrollment. So when you look at last year and the year before in 17-18, minus one student, but that can be a little deceiving because we did grow our preschool. So that's our total enrollment that's listed on the DOE website. It gets confusing for people sometimes when they see that number, but when you take out a couple hundred preschool kids, that's more indicative of where our enrollment is in the 3,200s. We continue to see a decrease. We're hoping we keep that steady this year. I do know of some families moving in or transferring their kids into our district, so that's a positive thing. Free and reduced lunch. Do you see any trend there? Anybody see anything you want to share? If you look on the far right column, the state average is listed in the blue, but you look at our numbers, we're staying pretty consistent with where we're falling with the paid students. And I think that's, you know, we're keeping it below that 40%, but we're pretty close. So we've been fluctuating the last 5 to 6 years at 35 to 40%. I think the paid number percentage went up a little bit. I think with the economy, I think that's helped push our numbers up a little bit. So just a good comparison when we look at what the free reduced numbers are at the state level. You know, below 40%, we're at 52%. So.
How is our new program, since all of our elementary school kids, how will the fact that all of our elementary school kids this year are going to get a free lunch, how will that impact this data for next year? Because basically, we're going to have every elementary kid with a free lunch.
Yeah, but it'll still look at the percentage of the kids below the poverty threshold or the reduced amount. So we should still have data.
So it's based on the database, not the
Actual dollars collected.
not the actual
Right.
dollars collected.
Right.
Okay.
Good question.
We may need to look at those that apply for free textbooks
Right.
at the elementary level to convert that over for free and reduced for the elementary for the numbers that you utilize.
Okay.
So,
It's odd that in 2017-18, that 4.4% in reduced when it doesn't follow any trend above or
Right.
below it.
Yeah.
So is that just some weird, it's just weird.
Maybe as many parents didn't. who
But
were
then
on that.
again,
The free went up.
the free
went
went
up
up by
5%.
quite a bit.
Yeah, the free
So
went up.
they may have been in that reduced bracket the year before,
And
and
then
then
maybe-
Went to free.
Yeah. They might have changed the parameters of. or
Yeah,
the-
because that would be the 4%,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I always, when I look at free and reduced, I add those two
Together.
percentages because that gives us a pretty consistent
Right.
amount each year. Kindergarten readiness. So I made this current past school year's in numbers in larger font. So you look at our incoming group of kindergartners in the fall, their reading score average was 137.5. So you look from 2014, it's dropped 4 points. That's significant.
Yeah.
4 or 5-year-olds starting kindergarten. The same for math, it was at 139, and you can just see the steady decline with that readiness piece of our kindergartens, which is one of the factors in why we're investing so much more in our early childhood, our preschool. But the celebration here is continue to look at the growth that they have in the spring.
Yeah.
I think that's so, you start at 14 all the way down to 18, 19. Every year we see a larger RIT growth consistently with both. I think that's kudos to our kindergarten teachers and staff who are getting that growth out of the kids and pushing them up, really growing them much more than 1 year. So I commend our elementary primary staff and administrators for the work there.
Did we hear at our retreat, I'm not sure if that's where I heard it, that kindergartners are now coming in so many months behind, like 19 months?
I think Scott shared that.
Or Scott.
Yeah, our preschoolers are
Preschool.
18 and 19
preschoolers.
months
Head Start.
behind
Yeah.
developmentally in Head Start that we are assessing.
That's why we're doing that developmental preschool, correct?
Well, that's another part of that. We've had the developmental preschool
Yeah.
for those kids who will have an IEP. But the Title I preschools are the ones where they don't include the Head Start kids, but these kids are still coming in significantly below the national norms. Another piece with the kindergarten readiness, and I think this is, if you look at the last one, the kids' average score was at the 35th percentile nationally. So when we rank our Fayette County school kids at the start of the year in reading, they were really in the bottom 1/3 nationally. When you look at their spring scores, they moved up into the 63rd percentile. The same for our math. They started off at the 35th percentile and they moved to the 55th percentile. And NWA will tell you that you want to maintain that band of growth. So if a student is in the 35th percentile at the start of the year, they should be at or above that. We're 28% above that in the growth and then 20% math. That's impressive. I mean, I got so excited when Kim was sharing the data with me this spring. It was just awesome. So it shows the good stuff we're doing there, investing in that. And I think we're going to hopefully see an increase in that beginning year RIT as these preschoolers move into kindergarten. My hope is that we will see that. For our district, last year, and I was going to put last year's chart there, last year we had 3 grades that did not exceed the national average RIT growth. This year, every grade in math exceeded the national average RIT growth for the year. That's impressive. And the younger the kids are, the bigger the band of growth. So when you move into 9th and 10th grade, look at 10th grade for the national average. NWA says that 2.3 RIT growth is the national average, and our 10th graders grew 7.4. That's a celebration every grade. So I think the focus we've had on math, the things that we're doing at the secondary level with math, this means a lot. So kudos to our teachers who have been really taking those extra steps and providing that intervention and those opportunities for kids. Reading, and I have 3 to show you this year for reading where we didn't quite hit it. I think at our elementary, with our new reading adoption, I believe that along with our Marzano's work where we're vertically aligning the curriculum and narrowing that focus will help us. But overall, that's still some very good data. Not sure what happened with 9th and 10th. That's a lot different than what we saw last year, so I can't explain what happened there. And sometimes the kids have schoolitis at that point, taking the test at the end of the year. I don't want to say that's the reason.
It's a big social adjustment. It's a big social adjustment for a lot of those kids.
Well,
It is.
Could seem to be.
And also they were tested.
But how is that any different from any other year?
Well, because this year they had ISTEP, NW, we had they tested for a very long window of time, And by the end of the test, even though the NWEA is probably the least oppressive for them, it's still another test at the end of the year. So,
And the testing windows were pretty much the same for the high school. So I can't explain what happened. That's something that Kim will work with the high school team on to look at that piece.
Okay.
But we do have 3 grades that were not quite there. But we had some really good growth in the other grades that exceeded the national average. CHS graduation, I was hoping to give you that score with a drum roll, and we just don't have it yet. I checked again with Randy. He feels pretty confident we'll be close to where we were last year at least, right?
We'll be over 90.
Yeah, we'll be over 90, which was, that's our goal,
Baseline.
to be above 90%, so, and be above state average. So, to be determined. I will share that when we have it. Pretty cool numbers here. You look at the number of dual credits earned from 2015 until this past year, 4,278 dual credits with this early college high school this year with 241 seniors. And then something this year, I think last year, Randy, we had 6 students who were eligible to walk in the Ivy Tech graduation. This year we had 40.
Wow.
So I think 30 actually attended, if I remember right. But that's huge. So another celebration, I think, and
so
showing
much money saved.
a lot of money. It's always impressive when the kids stand at graduation, when Randy does that.
Yeah, right.
Just to show the impact of that. And I think this year we had one student with 71 or 73 credits, 72 credits, Mr. King. So our focus is, we are changing, Kim and I both believe that we stay the course, focusing on good practices, relationships, effective teaching in every classroom, and a guaranteed viable curriculum. We're continuing that focus in our work with our teachers and our administrators, and we're not throwing out a lot of new programs. We need to focus on doing what we're doing and do it well. So just wanted to remind you of that focus. Some highlights: our Title I preschool, I think, was a bigger success than what I even envisioned it to be. And it was so neat to go and watch their little graduations they did in the classrooms, and to see the growth of the children, and to hear the feedback from parents and grandparents. I just think it's been really great, and I commend Grandview and Maplewood and their teams for doing such a great job and working with Kim and making this happen. We are expanding one more class next year, so we will have a total of 10 preschool classes in our district classrooms. Curriculum alignment, we're completing that vertical alignment of math and language arts, and then working on creating those short formative sessions just to make sure kids are getting those standards. These aren't big things, these are naturally occurring assessments in the classroom. And then our K-6 partnership, we rolled that out this past year with that $100,000 grant we received, and we're going to continue that partnership with the Indiana Science Initiative. TransFinder, we had a little setback when we had to hire a new transportation director, but we are getting back on track, and we had paid for some training when we purchased the program, and so Daryl and Lou and one of our technology staff members went through the training this summer, so I'm hopeful that we'll get that in place, being used to create more efficient routes, hopefully cut down on times on the buses for kids, and to help us operate more efficiently with our routes. It's a challenge when you have such a big district, when you cover a whole county, because you may have 1 or 2 students up near Bentonville, and it takes time to run a bus up there, pick those 2 up, and then come back down and pick up 20 or 30 more kids. So we're going to try to find ways to help the kids and help our parents with that. We're still working on the other pieces with the GPS and the smartphone application, but our goal is still to have that piece in place where parents can see live time where the bus is. So through the GPS. So we're working, it's still on the back shelf, back burner right now. That's one of our goals. Numbers, I asked Rachel to provide some numbers with meals. So I just want to share those. It's a lot of meals we provided. And I believe we'll probably see that go up, certainly at the elementary. So I expect those numbers to be higher next year for the lunches. But you look at the number of suppers, that's a lot of suppers for kids. So,
Was that including the athletics that we did?
yeah. Our ratings, just wanted to share this as some information. We have 4 category rankings as a part of the RISE evaluation system. Let me get a drink here. I'm dehydrated, I think, today. And so when we look at our teachers, we look at teachers who are effective or highly effective. That's where we want our teachers to be. So I just wanted to share the overall percentages. We do have a few, the ratings aren't finalized because we don't have the school and district grades. So these are preliminary numbers. I don't know when we'll get the school grades.
How do these numbers compare to previous years? Are they about the same?
To what?
Are they about the same as previous years?
Pretty consistent. I think it may fluctuate between highly effective and effective by 5 or 10%. But, you know, that's a nice balance when you're in that 40 to 50% range with each. So we have a lot of really great teachers in our district. And they set some pretty good learning goals in the SLOs. And, you know, and I was impressed to see how many teachers met those goals for this year too. So we don't have the final score, but the school grade or district grade could pull it down slightly, but that will be a pretty good comparison where we'll be at the end of the year. Finances. If you look at the revenue column in the middle, keeps going down. Our expenditures have stayed pretty consistent. We did provide some good raises and stipends this year, which helped push the expenditures up a little bit. But I don't think it's always a bad thing when you have some reserve left in there. We need to continue to find ways to increase our teacher pay and compensation and benefits. Insurance, we're going to continue to see some increases. I'm encouraged. I think we're going to see some opportunities to increase the size of our trust. We're working on some things with that, with our trust, which could help push down our costs. So I'm waiting to get some more information before I share it with our insurance committee, but we had a committee that met last spring, and I think we're going to see some positives there to help with our insurance costs.
So these expenditures are just under the general fund or
General
the
fund.
education fund?
Yeah, it was a general fund for that year. But
Right,
now,
and so that would have been drawn from rainy day to meet some of those expenditures since they exceeded revenue?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some of our
Cash balance,
stipends and things.
cash balance.
Cash balance.
Oh,
That's general fund revenue and expenses only. And the general fund had cash balance, so that's why. you
oh,
see
okay.
You moved some money around for the pension, the severance piece, I believe you moved a chunk of money there last year, didn't you? About 800,000 or so. I'm trying to think of money that was moved from, because you,
We did for the field house.
okay, but there, that was for,
That's in that 800,
Yeah,
that
that was that
800's
800.
in there.
Okay.
so. But now with our new accounts, we'll just have the two, the
Right.
education fund and the operations fund. In our board retreat, we talked about that a little bit with our attorney during that professional development time. Just a graphic to show that with the difference in revenue versus expenses. District improvements. Brian went over a lot of these. I just wanted to list the ones that, a partial list of the projects that we're doing this summer. With all of our buildings being older, that's a continuous process to keep your buildings in good shape. And I think our buildings are in excellent shape. And I commend the board and administration and maintenance staff for all the work over the years they've done to prioritize and plan for these improvements. But it's a lot of work being done in our school district. again.
Is our oldest operating building Grandview?
Middle school.
Middle school, the old middle, I
The
guess the
old
original
middle-
building is still
right,
there, yeah.
Yeah,
That
but
was
otherwise of the elementaries, is it?
I think Grandview's the oldest building, isn't it? Yeah.
It was built in 49. Thank you.
I think our newest building, of course, is Everton. and that was built in 80 or 80. And this building was built in 82, so I guess this is the newest building. Some safety and security improvements. We always need to be aware of changes that are needed, and again this year, as we look back on the last school year, we've done a lot. The enclosure of the courtyard is a big safety piece at the high school with that one point of entrance for the CHS campus. The new interior doors and locks at CHS, additional security cameras being installed. That's an ongoing project that Terry works on with getting those where needed. We added a second full-time resource officer position to support our K-8 buildings. I've heard a lot of positives from staff and administrators and parents having that additional person there. The Raptor visitor management system, that will be in place to start the year. We got it into place at the end of last year, but we didn't want to throw anything new at the very end of the year. But that will be a new visitor management system that will make sure that people who enter our buildings and have access during the school day, run that against the sex offender registry. It's a pretty common system. It's being used in a lot of districts now. Visitors will get a sticker, have their picture on it, their name. It'll record when they entered the building, and then they'll check out when they leave. And it's also good if you ever have an emergency in a building, the secretary or administrator can see who has entered the building and who's checked in, so we can account for everyone as well.
How will that work for school programs and things where you get an influx of lots of people? Are you gonna?
Outside of the school day and things like that, we will not be using it for that. That would just be too hard to manage. So this is more in the school day when you have people coming into classrooms, volunteering, things like that. And once your volunteers have set themselves up in there, it's as simple as them going in and typing in their last name, print it off, and they're checked in. So
They just opened up the new Safe Schools grant application, and it's actually one of the questions in the grant. Do you have a visitor management system in your school corporation? So I think they're interested in funding those types of things and moving that forward.
yeah,
So-
I haven't looked at it, so that's interesting. Appreciate you sharing that, Janie. And then at our board training, Michelle talked about the new state requirements with drills, and that's something that Trent's going to be very involved with. All of our schools. Trent's been trained for this program, Alice, and he's going to be training at all the schools. And we are going to be required to have an active shooter training every semester starting this year in all of our schools. That's a new Indiana requirement, as you learned about the other day. So we're being proactive and getting a jump on that and getting everybody trained. And there's a really good children's book that is very appropriate for your K-4, K-5 students that goes with this. And it's really just empowering teachers to make lifetime decisions. What's the best thing to do with my students at this time? And so I'm excited about it. We used this in my previous district, and it was well received. There was always a little apprehension, but we want to be sure we communicate and educate our parents and kids. And, we make sure our kids know what's going to happen. We're not going to throw this on them when we start doing this. They need to know and be prepared, because it is a practice. And I wanted to talk about our collaboration with our local law enforcement. Randy, you have another trip, is that tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning.
With our local law enforcement, with another active shooter training using the high school facilities. This spring, they conducted those drills and practice in every one of our school buildings. So they have the familiarity with the buildings, and we're going to continue to work with them on the training and different things, just so they're prepared, so they know the buildings and are familiar with them. That's the key part of it when I talk to our chief of police and our sheriff, is for our officers to know the lay of the land in all of our buildings. So I appreciate their support of our kids and our safety. What's ahead? We're going to continue to work on the early college high school. That's going to always be a major focus. I think high school is our flagship, and this is a very important program, and I think we're still one of, 23?
30.
Is it that high now? Okay.
They just announced it this week, there's 30 now.
There's more, okay, so they've added more, but That's an important program, and I think that's a selling point for our district when people are looking at this area to see that opportunity for their kids. The free lunch programs at our elementary schools, which we talked about last month's meeting and moved forward with. The completion of the construction, I hope. That's still our plan, to get it done in the winter. And then get the main entrance and the offices done. And that SEL component, that social emotional learning, just providing more support for our staff is key. And, you know, helping our students, kids who are facing trauma. I wasn't prepared to deal with that when I went to college, and I don't think any of our teachers have been. So we really need to invest more in that to support our staff, and which in turn will better support our kids. So I'm excited about that opportunity and the grant we're using to fund that position. So I appreciate Kim and Megan Gilman, our special ed director, and for their work on that, and they're going to lead that during the next year. CHS has a new program they're trying out this year, and the SRE program, Randy's communicated it out to his students and families, and they just had something in the latest Spartan Express I read. So it's really going to be a chance to try to give kids that extra help, kids who are failing or making D-minuses. Just an extra way, but it could also be an incentive for those kids who are doing well in class. So there may be some other club opportunities and things like that for those kids who are being successful. But it will give kids an extra period to work on direct intervention and small group support with their teachers. So teachers brought that idea to Mr. Judd, and I think when teachers have a voice and a say and have that idea, I think that says a lot. So I'm excited. I'm anxious to see how that works, and it's going to take a lot of work to manage it. So Randy said he's up for it, his team, but there's going to be a lot of documentation involved to make sure you keep kids on track, make sure they're going. Because I imagine one or two kids may try to slide by that if they can.
Just one or two?
Just one
Yeah,
or two.
Randy told me one or two. No, not really. There'll be more than one or two.
It'll be interesting.
It will. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll evaluate that mid-year, and then at the end of the year, and see how it goes. Early Childhood Center, still something on the back burner we're looking at. Talked about this when I presented last year. We're moving classrooms into one building, trying to consolidate staff. And I know that Head Start staff has moved in their furniture, thanks to Brian's team, and they seem pretty excited about being there with the kids instead of being at the resource center. I think that'll be good for the kids. And then also our Marzano's framework with the high reliability schools. We're going to keep focusing on those three pieces I talked about. Any questions for me?
A lot of positives.
Okay. And we're front loading. And that is so important, because if we don't, we can focus all we want on, and we're proud of what the high school's doing, that those high school kids were kindergartners 13 years ago. And we have to keep consistency in what we do and front load there. And it's not a quick, there's no quick fixes in education. It takes a while. I'll be really curious to see the results that we get from our kids that have been in the preschool program, 12 or 13 years from now when they're graduating from high school, to see how this has impacted them. And probably we could get some pretty good feedback at third grade, whether or not they're reading at grade level by the time they're in third grade.
And we're going to track that data and follow these cohorts through. That's an important part of it. So.
Well, and that way we can tweak it if we need to work on something.
You can look at negatives and positives. Are we where we need to be? No. I don't think you ever arrive where you need to be. But I think that we have a lot of hardworking, dedicated people here trying to impact our kids' lives, and we can't lose sight of that. Teaching's a hard profession, and I think it's more stressful now than it's ever been, and we got to take care of our teachers too, and our administrators. And they got to support each other, but we also have to help find ways to provide more supports for them and the kids. So it's going to be a continued focus. So we're trying things. Sometimes we may come back and say, well, this didn't work like we wanted. we gotta reevaluate, and we gotta figure out how to do it better. So, but we gotta keep trying. We just can't magically wish that it's gonna go back to the way it was 30 years ago. It's not. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the public comment section. Persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, and/or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personnel or students must be discussed in private. Seeing none, we'll go on to report items. Superintendent discussion groups reports.
Principal Director reports. Director of Human Resources reports. Mr. Collins, do you have anything to?
Well, I want to say, knock on wood, we have one English teacher position at the high school. And we're hoping you haven't heard anything, have you? Okay, we have a great candidate we're working on. And I was hoping he'd hear something today. I haven't heard anything, but right now that's the only teaching position, which is pretty good. Now that's still 2 or 3 weeks away, so we could get a couple more, but knock on wood. We do have some support staff and coaching positions still to fill, but I think we're in really good shape, sir, and we've gotten some really great people. I think we've invested in some veteran teachers too, because we have so many young teachers in our district, and you've got to have veterans in those buildings too. So for some, we're investing a little more money in, but I think that's important. So, and we've found some good ones.
Great, thank you. Director of Finance report.
I want to thank Brian for his presentation this evening and his entire team and the custodians for the work that they're doing to get our buildings ready for next year. And just like this afternoon, we did receive our CEP approval letter from the state for the free breakfast and lunch at the elementary schools. Rachel's working on comparing their numbers to the numbers we use to make our projections to make sure there isn't any wide variation in that, but we should be good to go.
Great news.
Thank you.
Assistant Superintendent report.
I'm gonna pass.
Superintendent's report.
Now, I've talked a lot here, so I want to thank all of our local groups. We had the community, the community children's youth day, and I went over there, and that place was hopping, and walking tacos were flying off the table, kids grabbing those up. But there were so many resources there in our community, and just to see our local businesses and all the different service agencies and banks and, just that piece, it's grown. And in my time back here, just to watch how that's grown and to see the work that's being done there and supporting our kids. There's so much of that happens, and I just want to publicly thank all the organizations and people who support our kids in our schools each year.
Thank you. Okay, for the good of the cause, does anybody have something they'd like to share?
The CHS Spartanettes just completed their dance camp, and they were awesome. They had 7 nominees for their big award, and I'm having a grandmother moment. 3 or 4 of the girls were named to the All-American team, yeah. They also brought home other hardware, Spirit Award, and I think the one that really got to me the most, Kirsten, the team leaders are assigned younger groups to work with in the context of the camp. And at the end of the camp, the group of kids that they work with have the opportunity to honor one of their mentor person. And this is not somebody from their own team. This is somebody from another school or another group. And Kirsten Bennett was given the opportunity to work with a dance team from a middle school. And she was honored at the final thing today that her group said she was above and beyond what they had expected. There were only 3 of these awards, and Kirsten got one of them out of the entire camp. And she's a senior and clearly has a lot of leadership capabilities, but it was just so cool to see, and the bus ride on the express back was nice and quiet because they were very tired. Very tired. But it was a great camp, and Sandy's so proud of them, and they grew, and just the whole experience of being there with the kids at Ball State and being in the dorm and eating college food. They will appreciate Chartwell's much better when they come back. But it was a great experience for them, so it's something that CHS should be very, very proud of.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
Just encourage those 4-H kids to get their projects done. Time's ticking, that's right. It's great though to see an 8-year-old out there showing a pig or something. Just don't go to the fair, go support the kids.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Just a quick comment on our retreat. I want to thank our school attorney, Michelle Cooper, for coming out and helping us all to learn more about our roles and responsibilities and how legislation's going to impact us. And just a quick note, I am part of the Indiana School Board Association Legislative Committee. There's 2 people from every region. This was my 2nd year, so technically my term is up. Anybody can apply, I may apply again, but we had our annual meeting, and the legislative committee basically decides on foundational statements in order to guide the work of the ISBA during the legislative session. So this group comes up with 10 key areas that they would like to see the legislature focus on in education. So just giving you a little brief report that took place Saturday, and so I was in attendance there. Seeing no other comments, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andy. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.